So we're here for Operator Day, right? So let's talk about some operations. Today we're going to talk about DataOps. A little bit about me then. So I'm a product manager at Canonical. I'm product manager for the data platform. I've got about 20 years of history in data. I started out doing, data-driven applications, batch processing, using a lot of procedural SQL. I did DBA work, major data migrations, solution architecture for a lot of data lake setups, Kafka clusters, data hubs, real-time data hubs, all kinds of things, crazy things with Kubernetes, crazy things with Hadoop. So I'm going to talk to you today about DataOps, the challenges around DataOps, what it is and why it's so difficult, and how we can help to kind of address some of those challenges with model-driven operations. A DataOps team is basically it's a competence center that's focused on bringing data into an organization, preparing it for downstream use by different organizational units within the enterprise. So typically, it's going to be used for loaded into a data lake for business intelligence kind of use cases around operational reporting, statistics and analytics. It can also be used for like feature engineering for AI workloads, for data-driven applications actually. That's the team's goal. So typically a DataOps team owns the solution. So that means the infrastructure layer up to the application tier and the automation around that. You're working with a lot of very funky and cool technology typically in a DataOps team. So you're going to be working with stuff like Apache Hadoop. You're going to be working with Spark, you're going to be working with Kubernetes, you're going to be working with Apache Flink, you're going to be working with Kafka and Kafka Streams and Kafka Connect, and a ton of other exciting, cool, and amazing technology, right? You're going to be building processing logic in Scala or Python or in SQL. So there's a lot that can go wrong, right? Complex technology, it's going to be difficult. So things that can go wrong, well, broken deployments, CI/CD that's just stuffed up your production environment, expired certificates, it's a classic. Ticket granting tickets for Kerberos solutions that have expired or are not renewable. Back pressure on your streaming jobs so that the job goes offline, or the node goes offline, or the cluster goes offline, or the data center goes offline. And ultimately, the DataOps team's worst nightmare, data corruption. And inevitably in a DataOps team, it's kind of unescapable that you're going to do some live hacking on production at some point or other. And I can assure you that that's real blood in the picture, It's not pretty, it's not fun. It's quite a heart-stopping experience to hack live on a production system. But unfortunately, it's kind of part of the course of DataOps teams. So troubleshooting is an inevitable fact of a DataOps team. The way that the solutions are built, you're working with many different technologies interlocking and layered upon one another. So at the top layer, you've got your application logic, which you've written in Python or Scala or SQL or something else, right? But there are layers below that. So you've got your clustering layer or your database tier, your NoSQL cluster, or whatever you may be using in your kind of application enablement layer. You've also got your storage tier. And below that, you've got your OS, you've got your physical systems, you've got firmware and BIOS. I mean, we all have like horror stories to tell, right? And one of my favorite is for a large communications service provider that had their middleware systems all running with CPU frequency scaling disabled. So it meant that all of the middleware boxes had the CPU frequency set to 800 megahertz, which is like very hard to diagnose, you know? It takes a while. In fact, it takes a long, long time to get there. So often DataOps teams are set up to like accelerate the agility of the organization. So working with, you know, working nowadays in any enterprise means working with data. You know, we'll hear about the, you know, data-driven enterprise, but it's a fact, right? I mean, you know, making measurable decisions makes better business decisions. So DataOps teams are set up to with the intention of accelerating the efficiency of the organization. So your boss basically expects you to make the jump to light speed, right, for the organization. But the reality is that you're more likely going to be troubleshooting a broken hyperdrive, and I think it's not uncommon to hear the cry of the Wookiee in the team when you finally figure out, you know, what's wrong with it. You know, so yeah, it's not the jump to light speed that your boss wanted. So this brings me to the crux of the issue, which is that technical debt, deployment, troubleshooting, plumbing, you know, fixing broken stuff accounts for like more than 80% of the team's time. So in a DataOps team, most of the time is actually spent on deployment, realistically. And what's left of the time is spent on troubleshooting and firefighting, which leaves you with about 20% of the time to do productive new stuff, right? So what your boss actually thought he was paying for. 20% of the time isn't that much. And it can cause a serious backlog. And ultimately, it means that the organization is frustrated. You're frustrating your entire organization, which is not a nice position to be in. Sometimes it can feel like the sword of Damocles is hanging over the head of the team. So if we're able to peel off like 20% of that unproductive firefighting for the team, it effectively doubles their time available for productive new stuff, right? And of course, there's going to be meeting overheads and project management and all that good stuff, but the doubling of capacity is significant. So it's worth aiming for. Of course, how we're going to get there is the question, right? I think obviously the answer is automation, more automation. We're already using automation, but more of it is the only way to make this more efficient. But like, yeah, what, how do we do this? And this is where we come to the kind of the operations solution, model-driven operations solution. So I say solution, but actually I mean blueprint. It's a concept. Model-driven operations is essentially a paradigm. So what we're saying is, by encapsulating and programmatically coding up operational knowledge and experience and expertise, we're not going to take away all of the problems of the DataOps team. That's not realistic. But we can free up a fair amount of their time so that they've got, you know, more productive time in the flow state to do what they need to do. So, I mean, some of the tasks, yeah, deployment is obvious. Integration is pretty obvious, right? So, you know, integrating components within the solution, within the service environment, but also, yeah, integrating network elements, firewalls, you know, and the external components outside of the solution. Secret rotation, I mentioned it before, you know, expired certificates. If you can automate all of that stuff, password rotation and certificate rotation, renewal, you can save a lot of burden, but you can also save downtime when people forget to do it. Backup and restore is another place where I wouldn't say efficiency gains can be had, but like a lot of organizations don't fully test their DR capabilities and procedures. So by automating that properly and testing it from time to time, you can save a lot of downtime at some point in time. Other things on this slide here. So yeah, I mean, DataOps teams are working with clustered data processing solutions, either clustered files, distributed file systems, or Kafka broker clusters, or Zookeeper clusters, even for enablement. Kubernetes clusters. Hey, this is KubeCon, right? So scaling systems dynamically is it's taking the solution away from being like pets to being cattle. I think other things that are worth calling out here. So if you can, it's maybe a bit ambitious, but if you can capture snapshot capture during a crash, it makes diagnostics a lot easier, so that issues can be solved once and not repeatedly come up time and again, which again leads to more efficiency for the team. Canonical, we have our solution. It's not the only solution out there, but it's our solution for this. Juju is our solution. It's a kind of hyper automation solution, essentially. So we take the kind of the data platform elements and other enablers around that, and we automate them. So we provide the operational management orchestration that's a lot of the time that's taken up by DataOps teams, and we automate that so they got more time to do what they need to do. It's essentially other speakers today have talked about this, I think, but it's essentially a kind of Lego blocks kind of concept. You can click your application components together to build the environment that you want. So rather than us having a very fixed idea about how you should do data processing, we give you the toy chest, and you build what you need. That's kind of the approach with Juju. So it's not prescriptive, and it's pretty flexible. It's important to mention that our approach is meant to be as inclusive as possible, which means, sure, you can do some of this, if not a lot of it, with Amazon Web Services, or with Google Cloud, or with Microsoft Azure, or with any of the other major public cloud providers. They have automation, sure, but what we're bringing to the party is portability. So you can build your solution once, and you can run it on AWS, or you can run it on your own private cloud in your own data center, or you can run it across two, or you can run it across three. If you want to do that, we support that, and that's kind of I guess that's the differentiator. I mean, it's kind of the differentiator for Ubuntu in general, but for our DataOps story, being able to run stuff right once and run anywhere kind of is our objective. I think another thing to call out is that by using tools like this, you can't become a Wizard of Oz. You can do more with less. It's another way of looking at it. So either you look at it as we free up the team so that the team is able to do more, or you can take the more with less view as well. There's two ways of looking at it, I guess. The DataOps team is kind of could be viewed as a bottleneck within the organization, I guess. if they get jammed up, if they're not able to deliver because they're overloaded with firefighting, then the whole organization suffers, because data is so critical nowadays to modern organizations that without having them as productive as possible and as in the flow zone as possible as much of the time, the whole organization is slowed down, is made less agile. So, I hope you can understand my passion for why this is, essential for any organization to focus on, because ultimately, less time plumbing and fixing stuff means more time, winning, actually. Okay, so that was my slide presentation today. Thank you very, very much for giving me your attention. It's appreciated. I hope it was useful for you.